delivery trip on the ThomasBuilt, which is a Freightliner bus. And the first thing we want to do is come up to it and take a look at it, see if there's any new damage to it that I hadn't seen before. The other thing, because I'm far enough away, I can look underneath at the tires to make sure there's no flat tires. And also look underneath to make sure that I don't see any spots that might have been from dripping or leaking from the bus itself. And what we do is come on up over this side. Break this down into kind of quadrants a little bit. So we do the first quadrant. First thing we want to do is take a look at our side mirrors to make sure that it's secure. The lenses are not cracked or damaged. I would look at my crossover mirror, make sure that that is secure. The lenses are not cracked or damaged. Brings me right over here to my hazard turn signal light cover. I want to make sure that that is secure, it's not cracked or damaged. To my hood latch, I want to make sure that that's attached and not damaged in any way. And I do have a mud flap down there, so I want to make sure that that is secure and not damaged. And because I'm right here on this particular bus, I can deal with my DEF door. I want to take a look at the latch itself to make sure that that's functioning properly. Take a look at my hinges to make sure that there is no damage to that. I look inside at my cap to make sure that it is secure and it's not leaking. And then I can look at the canister underneath there that's holding the DEF fluid to make sure that that is secure and not damaged as well. We come around to the front. Now we start from the top and work our way down. So what I see is my 3 amber running lights. I want to make sure those covers are secure, the lenses are not cracked or damaged. Coming down, I have my red and amber warning lights. I want to make sure that those covers are secure, lenses are not cracked or damaged. Come down to my windshield. I want to make sure that I don't have any cuts or cracks or bullet holes or anything in there that would have a problem. And I'm looking at the seal all the way around, make sure that that is secure and not dry rotted. Just a little bit farther, I have my wiper assemblies, so I want to make sure that those are secure and not damaged or hanging down. Bringing me down to the front, I have my headlights, hazards, and turn signals. I want to make sure those covers are secure, the lenses are not cracked or damaged. I'm looking at my crossover arm, make sure that that functions, it's not damaged or hanging down. I'm looking at my license plate to make sure that it is secure and not damaged. And then one more time, I just take a look underneath the engine compartment area to make sure I don't see any leaking or anything like that. I'll come around to this quadrant. And as I'm just coming around, I'm going to deal with my crossover arm to make sure that that is secure, the lenses are not cracked or damaged. I can deal with my side mirror, make sure that is secure, lenses are not cracked or damaged. I'm looking at my hazard turn signal cover, secure, not cracked or damaged. I've got my hood latch, I'll make sure that that is secure and not damaged. And I have my mud flap down here that I want to make sure that that is secure and there's no damage to that. Which brings me down to this quadrant. I start at the top and I have my 2 antennas. I want to make sure that those are secure. There's no damage to them. And I have my stop sign. I want to make sure that that is functioning properly. I'm really looking at my 4 red covers to make sure that those are secure. The lenses are not cracked or damaged. Drop down here to my battery compartment. I want to take a look at that latch to make sure that it is secure, there's no damage to it. Looking at my hinges, I want to make sure that those are secure, there's no damage to them. Looking at the seals that I have on here, making sure that they are in place and not missing or damaged. Then I took a look at my battery tray. I want to make sure that that is secure, that it is not movable. And then I'm looking inside at my battery terminals. I want to make sure that there's no excessive rust or corrosion on them. The lines are connected properly to that. And if I had plastic caps, I want to make sure that those are on there as well. Then what we do is open up the engine compartment. we start on this side, and the first thing I'm taking a look at is my engine block. I want to make sure that I don't see any signs of leaking, and that there's any spray that I would see up here on the hood or on the back side of the firewall over there. The top thing from that is then all of my hoses to make sure on this side that there is no cuts, cracks, frays, or leaking, and the clamps and couplings on both ends are secure on all of the hoses, and I don't see any signs of leaking from there as well. I then have my coolant container. I want to make sure that is secure. The cap is on properly, and I don't see any leaking or damage from that, and that we have the proper amount of fluid in there as well. Which drops me right back down over here to my alternator. I want to make sure that that is secure, and I need to indicate that that is belt driven. So I'm looking at my belt. I want to make sure that there's no cuts, cracks, frays to that, and that it has the proper tension. Brings me right down over here to my windshield washer container. I want to make sure that that is secure. The cap is on tight. Don't see any signs of leaking, and that we have a proper amount of fluid in the container itself. Takes me right back here to my shock. I want to make sure that that's both secure top and bottom. No excessive rust and no leaking from where it comes together. Take a look at my leaf springs. I want to make sure that they're not bent, twisted, shifted, or missing, and that the shackles on both ends are secure and definitely not damaged. Looking in the center to hold it to the frame, I have my big U-bolts. I want to make sure that those are secure and not damaged as well. Brings me to my brake line. I'll make sure there's no cuts, cracks, frays, or leaking. The couplings on both ends are secure and not leaking as well. The brake line on this side takes us over to the caliper, so I want to make sure that that is secure, it's not damaged, and I want to make sure that that's not leaking. Inside the caliper, I'm looking at my brake pad, and I want to make sure that that brake pad is not worn too thin. Looking at my tire for overall wear across and all the way around, make sure that that's proper. Also that I have a minimum tread depth in the front of 4/32. Need to indicate that in the front I cannot have any retreads on the tires themselves. Look at my sidewall. I want to make sure there's no CCBs, which is cuts, cracks, or bulges. I'm looking at my rim. I want to make sure that there's no excessive damage and or rust, and there's no unauthorized factory welds. Taking a look at all of my lug nuts. I want to make sure that they are all present and secure. The caps are on. Took one off just so you could see them. Looking at my hub assembly, I want to make sure all of my bolts are there. There's no excessive signs of leaking and or rust. Inside, I could look at my rotor, and I want to make sure that there's no cuts, cracks, holes, missing bolts, or any contaminants on it like grease or oil. I'm looking at my valve stem and cover, and I want to make sure that that is not bent or broken, and I can check the pressure with a pressure gauge. So that takes care of this side. Alright, so we come over on this side and we're looking at the same thing. First thing I look is at the engine block itself. Make sure that I don't see any signs of leaking here and or any spray up on the hood or on the opposite side of the firewall. I'm then looking again at all of my hoses on this side to make sure that they are all secure, not cut, cracked, frayed, or leaking. Couplings and clamps are holding them all in place, and there's no leaking from them. If you look right here, you'll have your transmission, and here's your oil dipsticks. I want to make sure that those are secure and not leaking, and recommend that you check them at least once a week. We have our brake fluid container. I want to make sure that that is secure. There's no signs of leaking, no damage, caps are on, and that it's at the proper level. Fuse box is right here, and I just want to make sure that it is secure. There's no damage to it or anything like that, and we do have extra fuses on board. Which brings me right down over here to my power steering fluid container. I want to make sure that that is secure. The cap is on properly. I don't see any signs of damage and or leaking, and we're at the proper level for that as well. Now, one thing I do want to mention is in the back where we can't see it, I still have to mention that, and that's our water pump. Now, our water pump from that is gear driven, and we want to make sure that it is secure, not damaged and or leaking. Then brings that back out here to our steering column. I want to make sure that that's not bent or twisted, that it's held securely in place, and that our knuckles are properly greased and taken care of. Brings us here to our steering box. Now our steering box is gear driven. I want to make sure that that is secure. I don't see any signs of leaking from that as well. So that takes me to my primary, my secondary, my elbow, and my shaft going across. Make sure that those are all secure, not damaged in any way, and they're being held properly in place with my crown nuts, bolts, and cotter pins. There's generally about 5 of them in that area. Brings us right back over here to our shock. I want to make sure that that is secure both top and bottom, no excessive rust, and no leaking. Behind that I have my leaf springs, and I want to make sure that those are not bent, twisted, shifted, or missing. And then that is held properly in place by the shackles on both ends, which are secure and not damaged. That brings us to our big U-bolts, that they are secure and holding it to the frame and not damaged. Brings us to our brake line. I want to make sure that's not cut, cracked, frayed, or leaking. Couplings on both ends are holding them properly in place. Takes us to our caliper. I want to make sure that that caliper is secure, it's not damaged, no signs of leaking. Inside of the caliper is our brake pad, so we want to make sure that that is not worn too thin. Brings us to our tire. We want to make sure we got even wear across and around, and that we have a minimum tread depth of 4/32, and like the other side, front tires cannot have retreads. My sidewalls, I'm looking for CCB, which is cuts, cracks, and bulges. Looking at my rim and make sure that there's no excessive rust, no damage, and no unauthorized factory welds. Looking at all my lug nuts to make sure they're all present and secure as indicated by the covers on them. I want to look at my hub assembly. I want to make sure that all the bolts are there. I don't see any excessive signs of leaking, and no damage that I can see from there. Looking inside, I'm looking at my I'm looking at my rotor and making sure that there's no cuts, cracks, holes, or missing bolts. No contaminants on it like grease and oil. And lastly, I want to take a look at my valve stem and cover to make sure that it's not bent or broken. And I can check the pressure with a pressure gauge if needed. And that should take care of the engine. On this side, and the first thing I want to do is take a look at our door. I want to take a look at the 4 panes of glass, make sure that there's no cuts, cracks, or damage to them in any way, and the seals going around them are not dry rotted or missing or anything. I want to take a look at my hinges. There's 6 of them, top, bottom, and in the middle. I want to make sure that those are not damaged or missing. And I want to make sure that that is secure as well. I'm going to take a look at the hinges from the inside as well. Make sure that those are all properly placed. I've got my door arm. I want to make sure that that is secure, it's not damaged or missing. I'm taking a look at my steer handles and rails to make sure that those are secure and those are not damaged. I have my step light. I want to make sure that cover is secure and lenses are not cracked or damaged. And I'm looking at the plastic coatings that are on the stairs themselves. To make sure that those are secure, they're not damaged, they're not lifting up, which would cause somebody to trip and fall. Alright, so then, start from the top. I've got my 2 amber and 1 red running lights. I want to make sure those covers are secure and lenses are not cracked or damaged. Taking a look at all of my windows to make sure that I don't see any kinds of cracks, damage, holes of any size, any kind, and that the seals around them are all proper and in place. I do have 2 emergency exit windows, and what I'm looking for there is to make sure that the reflective tape is both on the top, on the bottom, and down both sides, that it's not peeling, damaged, or missing in any way. Brings me right down over here to my hazard and turn signal. I want to make sure that that cover is secure and the lens is not cracked or damaged. I then also have an outside step light. I want to make sure this cover is secure, lenses are not cracked or damaged. Then I've got 2 amber reflectors and 1 red reflector way at the back. And I want to make sure that those are not damaged, they're not missing, and they are secure as well. Then we need to go underneath the bus, about halfway. And there's about 4 things that you want to get underneath here for. The first is the frame. I want to make sure that that's not bent or twisted and it's being held properly in place. The second thing is my exhaust system. I want to make sure that that's being held properly in place and it doesn't show any signs of damage and or leaking, which would be indicated by rust or soot. Then I've got my drive shaft. I want to make sure that that is secure and in place, and I don't see any signs of leaking from that. And there are 3 catch hangers that you can see. 1, 2, and then there's the third one right here. I want to make sure that those catch hangers are secure and not damaged at all. Then I'm taking a look at the front side of my pumpkin, and I want to make sure all my nuts and bolts are there and I don't see any signs of leaking on that as well. We're coming back here to the butt tire area, and what we want to take a look to start with is our springs in the back. Make sure they're not bent, twisted, shifted, or missing, and that the shackles on both ends are holding them properly in place and they are not damaged. I'm looking at my butt tires for even wear across and all the way around. I have to have a minimum of 2/32 tread depth on the backs of these. Also, I must notice that there is proper spacing between the 2 butt tires, as well as indicating that there is nothing lodged up in between them. I can have retreads on the outside of these tires in the back, and I do have the sidewalls. Again, there's no CCB, no cuts, cracks, or bulges on that. I'm looking at my rim, make sure that there's no excessive rust or damage, no unauthorized factory welds. Looking at all my lug nuts, make sure that they're all present and secure as indicated by the covers that are on top of them. Looking at my hub assembly, I want to make sure that all my nuts and bolts are present. Don't see any signs of excessive rust and or leaking. Then I have an outer and an inner valve stem and cover, making sure that those are not bent or broken, and I can check the pressure with a pressure gauge. As long as I'm right here, I can take a look at my mud flap, make sure that that is secure and not damaged. Our diesel door, diesel fuel. All I do is make sure that my latch functions properly, it's not damaged in any way. Looking at my hinges, make sure that those are secure, there's no damage to them. Looking at the cover to my fuel tank, make sure that the diesel fuel tank cover is secure. Just give it a quick twist to see if it snaps. And I'm making sure that there is no signs of leaking from there as well. From there, we're going down underneath. There's about 10 different things we're going to be taking a look at underneath here. The first thing is my cage around the tank. I want to make sure that that is secure. It's not damaged in any way. Inside of that is the diesel fuel tank. I want to make sure that that is secure as well and don't show any signs of leaking. Then I'm taking a look at the back side of my pumpkin, and I want to make sure that that is secure. I don't see any signs of leaking. When I look over to the opposite side tire, I want to take a look at my shock to make sure it's secure both top and bottom. I don't see any signs of excessive rust and or leaking. And behind that, I can take a look at the great big huge U-bolts, making sure that those are secure and not damaged as well. Then I can take a look at my brake line and making sure that that's not cut, cracked, frayed, or leaking. Couplings are holding that properly in place on both ends, which takes me right down to the caliper. I want to make sure the caliper is secure, not damaged. I don't see any sign of excessive leaking. And inside of the caliper, I would take a look at, if I could, my brake pad to make sure that it's not worn too thin. Now on this particular bus, I can see my rotor from this side, so I want to make sure there's no cuts, cracks, holes, missing bolts, or any contaminants on it like grease or oil. Now the other thing that I need to take a look at is something that's up above that's hard to see, but I still have to mention that, and that is the what I would call the torque bar. And we want to make sure that that's not damaged or missing in any way. Alright, from then when we come and we start in the back, first thing I want to do is go back about 1.5 bucks. And I want to take a look at my strobe light cover and make sure that that is secure. The lenses are not cracked or damaged on that. Starting in the back of the bus then, going at the top, I've got my 3 red running lights, so I'll make sure those covers are secured, lenses are not cracked or damaged. Come down, I've got my red and amber warning lights, make sure those covers are secured, lenses are not cracked or damaged. Then I'm looking at the back side of the bus itself, and I can see all of the reflective tape going all the way around and on the door. I want to make sure that that is all present, secure, and not damaged or peeling or missing. And then looking at my 4 windows and making sure that those are secure, there's no cracks or damage to them, seals going around them are in place and not missing as well. So I can see my 2 hinges on the outside of the door, so I want to make sure that those are not damaged and they are secure. Take a look at the handle, make sure that that opens and functions properly. I'm going to open up the door. The first thing I'm going to do is check my stop arm, make sure that that is secure, it's attached and functions properly. And then I can take a look at the inside of the hinges to make sure that those are looking good as well. Then I can take a look at the seal that would go around the door as it closes to make sure that that's not dry rotted, missing, or damaged in any way. Starting with this, I've got 8 separate lights here to take a look at. I've got my 2 amber hazard turn signals. I've got my 4 red rear running lights and brake lights. And I have my 2 white backup lights. I want to make sure that those covers are all secure, lenses are not cracked or damaged. I come down here to my stop sign, make sure that is secure and that it is up to date. Take a look at the lighting system for the license plate to make sure that that cover is secure and the lens is not cracked or damaged. Then I've got 2 red reflectors. I want to make sure that those are secure, they're not damaged or missing. I take a look at my muffler system. I want to make sure that that is secure, not damaged or hanging down. The last thing I want to do is just take a look underneath from the bug tires all the way back to make sure I don't see anything lodged up in there, like a moose or grandma or any ex-in-laws that you want to run over. So there you go. So at this point, what we would do is go in and then do the light checks. So what we want to do is come in here. We need to lock the door open. Get into our seat. Open up our window. We want to stick the key in and put it on run to make sure that all our idiot lights and noises go out. I also want to make sure that I close my door. So I need to wait until all my gauges get back to where they need to be and I get up over a 1/4 tank. And once I get to that spot, I can turn this on. Okay. So now with the door open, what you want to think about is showing her or him the lights, and you go through a sequence. And the first light that we want to activate would be our strobe light. So that button is, strobe light is right here. So I would activate that and then yell into my window over here, because she'll be back there, and tell her to check the strobe light. So when she goes over to the side, she'll come back, put her finger up, that it's okay. And the next thing down is our running lights, and you would turn these on right here, putting it straight up, and then I would say running lights and down both sides. So she would check both sides, come back, give me some thumbs up that everything worked out good. So then the next thing you know is your amber warning lights. So I would turn that on and say amber warning lights, and you can see that it's lit right here, and she'd check and give me thumbs up. Then I would do the door half open, which would turn red warning lights. And it just goes halfway, then this changes over to red. So she'd check those and give me thumbs up. And I would turn it off. I do the flow, I come right over here. I do my left turn signal and down the side. And I would do my right turn signal and down the side. And then right in the center, because it's two functions. And I would do hazards and down both sides. When I'm done with that, turn that off. And the next thing as you move in is your brake lights. So I push my brake on, say brake lights. And then I would put it in reverse and go reverse lights. So when she's checked them all out, I put it back into neutral and then I turn off my running lights, waiting for her to come up into the front. So when she's up in the front, the first thing I want to turn on, as if you remember, if you look, is the running lights. But in front, I would also have my headlights. So I would say running lights, headlights, and then I would start. After that comes my amber warning lights, red warning lights, okay, left turn signal, right turn signal, brights because I'm in the front here now, and that'll turn it blue right here. It's real hard to see with the sunshine on it. And finish up with my hazards. When she's done with that, she'll come around to the side of the door. I'll turn that off, and I will open up the door for her. And I will point out that my step light is functioning, and she can see that right there. So bring her on in, and once she's in, I can close my door down. Then what I want to do is give her the lights that I have on the inside of the bus. So I have my driver's dome light. Make sure that that is functioning properly. Then I have my rear dome lights all the way in the back. That's set. And then I got my front dome lights. And I want to make sure that those function as well. Once I'm done with that, now I want to show her that my light indicators on the dash actually worked properly where we have them. So I would start over with my warning lights, and that would be the amber warning lights. So I can show her that it's working here. Here's my red warning lights, and then it functions here. And I also need to indicate to her that not only that, but my stop sign and my crossover arm do activate with putting them on. What's that? And I come right back up here. I've got my left turn signal, which you can see here. I got my right turn signal, which is right here. Right's a little hard to see. I don't know if you can see that. And hazards. All right. And then the other thing I want to indicate, although it's going to be hard to see, is that the lights on my gauges are lit as well, so that we know that the running lights are functioning properly. So at this point, what I wanted to do is to turn the bus completely to ACC, and I want to push the brake, so that you can hear that the hydraulic brake motor is functioning properly. I then want to run through my gears, make sure that everything is functioning properly. We get that back into neutral. Then what I want to do is turn my bus to run, and what I'm actually looking for is all of my idiot lights and gauges to go out, specifically my coil as well as my ABS. Everything else should go out. The only thing I should have left on would be my brake light, but you can also see that down here it has my seatbelt light on as well. Once I get that back up to a quarter, then I can start the bus. That will give us that indication. So the next thing I want to do is check my service brake for play. So I pump that once, and I pump it a second time, and count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what I'm actually looking for is to make sure that that brake holds and it's not squishy going down, which indicates that I might have a brake leak at that point. Then I'm going to my steering wheel. I want to make sure that I have 20 degrees of play, 10 each way. So just by turning it, I should be able to feel it connect with the tires when they're doing that. From there, I come right into the center and I test my horn, which means I get check the seats. I'm going to check the bottoms and the backs all the way to the back. sure that they're not loose. Once I'm back here, the next thing I want to do is take a look at my emergency door light to make sure that cover is secure. It's red and I don't see any cracks or damage to the cover itself or the lenses. I want to activate the back door by the handle. When I do that, I want to make sure that the alarm goes off, and then when I close the door and put the handle down, the alarm goes off. So it's activated and it's off. Then I'm going to turn around. I'm going to point out that I have 4 emergency exits, 2 on either side. And what I want to do is test one of them. When I open this latch, the alarm should go off. Get it out, bring it back in. Once we lock it down, the alarm should go off as well. As we're moving forward, what I want to do is take a look and point out that this is my emergency roof exit. So when I come down to this point, what I want to do is indicate that here is my license and registration. Over here is my first aid kit, which is located in here, which is right here. I want to come down and indicate that here is my body fluid kit. Here's my 3 emergency triangles. I have my fire extinguisher here. I want to indicate that it is secure, that it is properly rated as an ABC, and that it is properly charged, which is indicated by the arrow being in the green area. All right, then we get back into our seat. All right, so we're starting from the top, work our way down. We got my child check mirror. I want to make sure that that is secure and it's set up properly so that I can see every seat from directly behind me all the way to the back. I then have my visor. I want to make sure that that is secure, it's not damaged, and it's being held properly in place. I'm looking at the inside of my windshield to make sure that I don't have any cuts or cracks or damage to that. Seals on the inside are all good as well. And then I'm going to take a look at my wiper blades, because I couldn't see them outside, to make sure that those are secure, present, and not damaged. Then what I'm going to do is take a look at my right side mirror, my right crossover mirror, my left crossover mirror, and my left side mirror to make sure that they are all set up properly for me. When I do that, then I want to come down to this panel, and we've gone through the lights on this system, but on the top here is my forward midship heater. So I want to go through low, high, and off as I work my way up. Then I've got my mirror heater, which is for my mirrors outside. You can use that in inclement weather, which would be rain, snow, sleet, and fog. We do have our defrost fan, the windshield one. Low and high and off. We have the left side over here, which is low, high, and off. I have my stepwell heater, which is right down there, which is low, high, and off. Now I come back to my aft, which is all the way on the back heater, which is low, high, and off. And what I can do is come right up here to check my windshield wipers. So I want to make sure that they're functioning properly. So I go to low, I go to high, and then I want to activate to make sure that the fluid functions properly. And there it does. Let that dry off a couple seconds. Then the next thing I want to do is take a look at my gauges. I have my transmission gauge, which is right down there about 125 at the present time. My water temperature is just about 125. It's cold right now. Normal operating temperature would be between 180 and 200. My oil pressure is real close to like 40. I've got my RPMs at about 7,500, 800. I've got my speedometer, which should be at 0 because we're not moving. I do have my voltmeter indicating that we're at 4 volts. My DEF is right here, so I want to make sure that that is full. If it was winter time, or if I get down below, I should say winter, if I get down below a half a tank, then I'd want to get in touch with maintenance and have them put more in. My fuel tank is at a half. Again, if in the winter, if I got below a half, I'd probably want to put more fuel in there just to prevent any kind of water buildup within the system. I have a front heater, so you got the heat warmth here. We got it on the windshield for the defrost, and I also have my own heater right here, which would be down here. So this would be 2 would be at a low, and I can feel them. Got their function. Then I would put it on high, which would be 4. I can feel both of them again. So done with that, I can turn them off. Leave it like that. Alright, the next thing that I want to do is, after going through all of this, is I want to check my parking brake. As you can see that it is on right now. So how we're going to do that is by putting the bus into drive, and we're going to get this up to about 1,000 RPMs. Hold it for about a count of 5 just to make sure that the brake itself functions. So I'm going to push this, make sure that that's on tight enough. Get that down, and I will put my left foot next to the brake, so in case it decides it wants to take off on me and doesn't hold, we'll go there. So I'll get it up to 1,000 RPMs. Do this one nice and neat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Back off. Put that back in neutral. Parking brake is still on. So at this point, what we want to do is take a look at my seat belt, make sure that it is not cut, cracked, frayed, and that it properly latches. And so what we're going to do next is to check our service brakes, and how we're going to do that is by putting it in drive, get it up to 5 miles per hour, and then apply the brakes. We're going to do that twice. We're done with that. That goes back into neutral. Parking brake goes back on. Now, the last thing that we need to do is to back the bus up, and so we need to utilize our 3 H's. 1, it would ask for help to go back and spot for me, and that would be with the tester or whomever is with me if I'm trained. 2, I would have my hazards on for backing, and 3, I'd use my horn. So let's go perform that now. Assume the person has gone back there, they said it was all clear. Put the neutral, parking brake on. And then I can turn my hazards on. And what I would do now is call the person up, sit up here, and I have an opportunity at this point to go through the entire thing to determine if I've missed anything. If I think I missed something, I don't know, but I want to say it. Even if I did say it, it's still covered, it's still good, and until I indicate to the tester my pre-trip is complete, then it is, the line is drawn and she's scored.